more World Cup action. We've had Group E and Group F kick off now. We'll see the opening games of those two groups. So of course we'll start with Germany's huge win, 7-1 victory over Carousel. Now this was expected to be a Germany win. Most people predicted fairly comfortable Germany win, convincing Germany win. Even if you're not particularly convinced by Germany, I'm pretty sure everyone thought Germany would ultimately win this game. It would have been considered, if they got anything out of the game, Carousel, like the biggest World Cup shock of all time. They're a small team in a really small Caribbean island, like really, really small, even for those sort of islands. They're one of the really, really small ones. This is a tiny, tiny country. So they qualified for the first time. They topped the qualifying group, which Jamaica and Trinidad back in November in the qualifying, and qualified for the first ever World Cup like that. By population and by also size, they are the smallest country to ever qualify. So just them being there, just qualifying, is a huge achievement for them. It's just an outstanding thing and an incredible thing for their people, for the fans that travelled there to that game yesterday. And the fact they scored as well, went behind and then equalised against Germany, will be a moment they'll never ever forget. So it's definitely worth acknowledging that, because that was it was quite something seeing them playing in a World Cup, and it just shows you realistically now anyone can qualify for one of these tournaments for sure. But Germany expected to win, and I think the first half, a lot less convincing, but the second half they really sort of did come alive, didn't they? And very, very light work of it. I mean, I don't think this will change people's thoughts on Germany. I think, if you wasn't convinced by Germany coming into yesterday, you won't be any more convinced by them off the back of that, because there is only so much. Because of the level of opposition, there's only so much you can credit that. But what I will say is Germany were clinical. Previous tournaments, they haven't been clinical. The more recent ones where they've not performed, they've not been clinical. This one, they was clinical in. And, they certainly have. When you look at the team, very, very good team. A team that is capable, definitely capable, and they've got a good manager. There is no reason they couldn't do well. The only issue is they did still feel very open defensively. It did still feel like a top side could really exploit this team. But that said, they certainly got the quality, and it started how they wanted it. How they would have wanted it to. Jamaica putting them 1-0 up early on, just around 5 minutes in. From there, it's Germany very dominant. From there, certainly looked like they were pushing for that second. And but to be fair, Curacao, they really did start to get a foothold in it. Every time they lost the ball, they would track back well. Every time they had decent counter attacks at the moment as well. It was very much Germany dominating the game, and they still looked dangerous. But they did have decent counter attacks of their own, Curacao, and it was on the break they got one of these goals. They got the equalising goal. Which is a moment they will never forget. And it was a good strike as well. It was a good goal to put them 2-1 up, and they had the game level for just under 20 minutes. So it is a decent effort. Even just that alone, is an incredible achievement. Something that will feel like a victory. And they. Even when they went behind, Stockerbeck, who got his head on the ball a few times, I did think the way he was going, he would get one of these headers in, and he did. Then from there, even if they could have got it to half time with 2-1, I still think maybe the scoreline wouldn't have been quite so bad in that second half. Maybe they would have held out. It would have been 4-5-1, but instead of 7-1, obviously. But of course, they couldn't quite get to half-time, literally right at the end of the half. At the end of the stoppage time, they get a penalty, Germany. Havertz then puts that away. Keeper goes the wrong way, no saving the penalty. And, from there, Germany 3-1 up half-time very much feels like, they'll be all right now, Germany. Curacao going into the second half didn't really know what to do apart from just enjoy the occasion, as they should. Just enjoy playing and just try and attack and, just have a go. And they did, to be fair. Every goal that went in, they didn't stop trying to attack. They didn't stop trying to kind of, they made the game a contest through, the first half, and that was an achievement. But realistically, it was always going to be comfortable for Germany. Germany, the big tests are still to come. Really, the other group games will be a lot harder. When it gets to the knockouts, which they should qualify for, games will get a lot harder. But they did what they had to do. They beat the team in front of them convincingly. Scored pretty much as many goals as you could do. Massive, massive victory for Germany. If you look at the sort of historical factor as well, another 7-1 win. And finally getting a win in the first World Cup game as well. They lost the last two World Cups. They lost the opening game and ultimately didn't qualify from the group. So this was much needed. Just takes that pressure off of them somewhat. And in terms of that second half, it started. Germany on the front foot again. Musiala gets his goal. Good for Musiala to get his goal as well. I would say, to be honest, fully fit Musiala, probably Germany's best player. Manuel Neuer, oldest ever player to play for Germany as well, 40 years old in that goal. So there's a story all over the pitch really when you think shortly after Musiala's goal, they still do well to keep the score down, not only at 4 for quite a while, Curacao, but Nathaniel Brown gets his first Germany goal shortly after the game. It's been announced by signing 55 million, so it's funny how that works out. They must have just literally sort of signed him after the game, but Musiala, there was a lot of talk that when he got that injury at the Club World Cup last summer, the awful leg break, there was a lot of talk he maybe even missed this tournament, but he managed to get himself fit for it, and the way he played yesterday certainly looks like he's going to be fine. We see obviously Dennis Undav gets a goal, and another one from Kai Havertz as well. Continues his what I've got to say is a good run of form at the moment. 7-1 win for Germany. Impressive in the sort of magnitude of the win, the size of the win, but you have to factor in the opposition. You have to factor in there's going to be a lot harder tests to come. But what I will say is Germany could not have done any more yesterday. And Curacao, massive fair play to them just for qualifying. But in the way they approached the game yesterday, in the way they played in that first half, deserve all the credit. There's so much credit as well. All the credit they will get for that, they deserve for sure. So that was Germany's game. The other game in that group, we'll go to the other game in that group and then we'll work our way down to Group F. So the other game in Group E, Ivory Coast and Ecuador, much more evenly matched. These two really going to be tight in terms of who qualifies, who can be the closest to Germany. Because after what we saw yesterday, I think it's confirmed what most people thought, which is that there's probably the Curacao will do themselves proud, but realistically, there's 3 teams that could qualify. They could all qualify actually with 3 third place spots. Obviously, Ecuador and Ivory Coast and Ecuador, really tight game, really tight. And I thought it would be. I thought it would be really close. I predicted a draw here. I predicted a 1-1. I thought both of them would at least keep the score down. Both good defensively. And I think we really saw that yesterday. Both of them. It was all about that defence. It was all about defending the other team, waiting for your chance. But Ecuador sort of going well in that first half. Had those chances, hit the bar as well, but I think Ivory Coast, they grow into it second half. I didn't see this game live, but I've seen the highlights. I've heard what's everything that's happened. Of course, we see, Ivory Coast have a few of the chances in the second half. It was very much even contest. That felt like it could go either way for a while. It was looking like a potential 0-0. A lot of people did say that it could be a 0-0. Could be both of them are very good defensively. First game could well be a 0-0. Both of them not wanting to lose with what's at stake here. Defeat somewhat damaging, very good for Ivory Coast. Ecuador definitely not good for them, but although what I will say is with there being the possibility of 3 teams going through, with it being only the first game, it was the manner they lost as well. So lose it in the last minute will really hurt, of course. But of course in the 90th minute it was Amad Diallo, who likes late goals. Not his first famous last minute goal he's got. 90th minute winner, can't get any better than that for Ivory Coast. Huge win for them, massive goal, put them in the lead. You can see what it meant to them. The celebrations when they were goal in at full time, it was really not really sure what was going on with the celebration with Diallo and his teammates. Something was going on there, I'm not sure, but some sort of, also there might be some sort of argument, I'm not sure, but definitely a tight game. Just Ivory Coast just steps up in that big moment, just had that cutting edge, just were clinical when it really mattered, when it really counted. Ecuador definitely got to sharpen up moving forward, but it was always going to be a really tight game. That, and I think it was just going to be a one moment to game, the one moment to win the game type of occasion. That one, I thought it would be tight, but certainly Ivory Coast, I think, are maybe going to do better than people thought. Maybe they look good to maybe get out of this group. They look good to maybe go on a bit of a run. They're certainly going to take some beating. They've got, it's a quality team here. I've seen the team they've got up here. They've got, good player in every position here. Same to say about Ecuador, but I do think Ecuador, the only worry for me is, despite how good they are defensively, they may struggle to create the chances. But I do think they've got it in them, though, because we see how good they was in the qualifying through South America. They had a 3-point deduction. I only remembered that the other day, and then they managed to still finish second in that group, only behind Argentina. So potential's there, but definitely got to sharpen up in that next game. Who do they play next? Actually, both of these two. It's next up is Ivory Coast and Germany. good opportunity then for Ecuador then against Curacao ahead of their Germany game. So yeah, that was that game. Really tight as expected. Now let's go on to Group F because we had two very exciting games there too. This was always going to be an interesting group. This another one of those sort of group of death, really. Tough teams in this for sure. Of course, start with Netherlands against Japan. Really entertaining game. Like I think a lot of people thought this would be. This is one going to be. A lot of people thought, and I thought this would be one of the standout games of the round, and it did not disappoint. Really entertaining game, particularly in that second half. It really come alive, but I knew both teams had a really exciting game in them coming up against each other, and we certainly got that. Thought both were fantastic. We saw a lot from both. We saw a lot of quality from both. I think both teams deserve a lot of credit. I think both teams have got potential to go far in this tournament. I think both these two could cause any team in this tournament problems. I really do. Obviously, the Netherlands recent, they've always, they didn't qualify in 2018, but if you look at all the previous World Cups, they've always been, a strong contender in the ones before that. Probably the most successful nation to ever win this. Surely they will win it one day, whether it will be this year or not. I'm not sure. They quite have the depth, but they've certainly got the quality in all areas of the pitch. They certainly, they do. I think the team, it's a decent mix of youth and experience as well. I think it's a good. It's a very good squad they've got, and I think maybe gone a bit under the radar a bit coming into this tournament. And I do think going into this, I very much thought it was between them and Japan to top this group, and this game could be very important for that. There might be another team that could top this group. We'll talk about that in a minute. But game starts. Netherlands on top to start with. Japan really start to get a foothold going and really start to create the chances. And we know all the qualities Japan possess. They've caused big teams problems in matches in recent seasons. They improve every World Cup. They improve every qualifying round. They just seem to get better and better and better. This is probably the best team. This is the best team they've ever got coming into this tournament. Very heavily fancied as a potential dark horse team. Well, yes, very strong. 11 for them as well, and they're a team that you can't make mistakes against them because they will straight on you like that. They frustrate teams. They can frustrate anyone. Even at the start of that second half, they had a couple of decent shots. They had a pretty decent chance, but of course, from a set piece, we see Van Dijk gets his head on the ball for that header, and he's good for a header. Van Dijk always has been. First ever World Cup goal for him as well, and he puts the Dutch 1-0 up. We see this a lot in recent tournaments. The Dutch have been very good. They reached the semi-final of the Euros, they reached quarter-final of the last World Cup, and they've been in the World Cup finals, World Cup semi-finals, not too long. Not if you go back through the more recent tournaments as well. So they're always, there or thereabouts, and certainly could go far in this tournament. But from there, Japan, they don't sit down, though. They find a way back into it. They keep doing their thing. They find, and they do. Their hard work does pay off because they find their goal. The Kamari ends up getting a good strike as well to get them back in the game. From there, the game's really on. It's really sort of could be end to end. Really could open up. And it was a really entertaining game. It was a really enjoyable game. It was Somerville, really good goal from him as well. Fantastic. But from there, Japan, they don't stop. They keep pushing for their equaliser. I was wondering if Netherlands would hold on, but they keep pushing Japan. They keep pushing. Kameda, he does step up and gets from that set piece. He gets that header and puts them right back level, going into the sort of stoppage time, right at the end of the game. Great time to score, and was unable to hold on there, the Netherlands, but certainly saw a lot from both teams. I was certainly very impressed by both teams. I saw enough to think both teams could do very well this tournament, and I think certainly an enjoyable game. I expect two quality sides there, and that really does show Japan's improvement. That really does show how much of a threat they're going to be. The fact they stood up to an experienced team like that and evenly matched them, maybe even at times, large times, were better than them as well in that game as well. It was a good game, very good watch. Probably you could argue maybe up to this point. I mean the Bosnia-Canada game, that was certainly enjoyable, but this was probably the game of the tournament. I think that's taken that title now for sure. Now the final game, the other game in Group F, we're going to talk about of this round, Sweden against Tunisia. Now, I wasn't sure about this game. I predicted Sweden win just because I had them third ahead of Tunisia, but I really did think it could go either way. I was really not sure about either team because Sweden, they wasn't great they were poor in the group stage of the sort of qualifying, but when it got to the playoffs, they really, really turned up, didn't they? They were brilliant, both playoff games, and excellent yesterday. So much quality in this Sweden team, and I knew they had it in them. I knew they had it in them to be a quality side, but it was almost a bit like the same what I said about the US. I wasn't sure when it really got to the big stage whether whether the team would click and it would all come together and the quality would really show, but it certainly did. Wow, biggest sort of did not expect winning margin of like that 5-1 victory. Sweden, they're huge win, and sort of come back after not qualifying for the previous World Cup, having some really disappointing few years as well with a really quality team just not performing. Really announced themselves on the big stage here and really have shown that they're a threat in this group. They're not afraid of anyone in this. Don't have to fear anyone in this group now. They could cause everyone problems. They could have a very, very successful tournament. The team's certainly good enough for that to be the case. Quality in all areas. A decent defence, but the attack's got so much quality in. And it really shown yesterday. Gyökeres early on, he's on the front foot, and we see he's starting to really hit form now with his performances for Arsenal. Definitely better on the back end of the season. Isak, it's not happened for him this season. He had that awful injury, but he's got himself fit in time for this tournament. They get the goal early, Sweden, but then they follow it up quite quickly. They're on top, pushing for that second. Isak gets some the second. Right on half time though, Tunisia, they're pulling back. This makes it a real contest going into the second half. It's despite Sweden being the better team, it makes it now a bit nervy for them. It's giving them something to think about, but they do not stop in that second half. They remain on top. That's when, of course, Gyökeres steps up with his goal. And then two late ones seals a massive Sweden win. So a lot of people thought Sweden would probably get the win there, but that was a lot more convincing than I think anyone would have expected. And I think it's laid down a real marker and made a real sort of warning to sort of the rest of the group to say this is this team, we play well together now. This is a serious team. We've got it together. Sort of bad years are behind us. This is a team to be feared now for sure. And if you look at the quality of the team, they've certainly got the sort of level of quality in the squad that a lot of the teams that are being really fancied to go quite far and be one of the sort of dark horse or surprise teams have got in them. So it's only one game. Obviously, Tunisia very poor. It's got to be said. But again, only one game for them as well. But the other two games, are teams at a top level as well. So it's going to be tough for them. They certainly didn't fill me with confidence yesterday. Whereas Sweden, only one game, but made it, like I said, like Germany, made a real statement and made a real kind of looks a lot more clinical than they've done in previous years as well, which is key. When the chances were there, they were taken. It wasn't just a case of dominating the game. You expect to dominate these games, these type of games. Clinical when the chances come, that's important. A massive win overall for Sweden. Huge, deserve a lot of credit and shown that there's reasons for optimism going into this tournament for them. So. Sum up, we've had a convincing Germany win, maybe a bit even more so than expected, a 7-1 against Curacao, but fair play to them, of course. We see Ivory Coast in a really tight game step up in the big moment right at the end to win themselves the game. We see a really entertaining 2-2 between two very good sides in Japan and the Netherlands. And finally, to wrap up, we see a very, very convincing Sweden 5-1 victory over Tunisia. So a lot of teams have impressed there. Some of them results I expected, some of them not so much. So a lot to come today. We see Spain get their tournament underway today, so that's going to be very interesting to see how they do and to see how they start, how fast of start they can start off with, and also how many of the top players they pick for Cape Verde. That's it for the opening games in Group E and Group F. Anyway, the next set of group reactions to the next set of group games are coming up tomorrow.